Hello and welcome to Level Up and Friends, where those of us from the video game and comic book store, Level Up Entertainment, get together with some friends each week and talk about, discuss some topics that we're passionate about. This week, we're going to be discussing the current state of Star Wars, how we felt like Disney's been handling the franchise, our thoughts on some of the more recent media, and where it's going to go. And we're going to talk a little bit about the new season of Mandalorian, which has had 2 episodes come out as of this recording. But as usual, I'm your host, Scott, and joining me this week, I've got Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean. Would you like more? Should I like tell people who I am?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'm one of the owners of Level Up Entertainment, and I like Star Wars. I wouldn't say I like Star Wars, not like I used to, but I still really like Star Wars.
Yeah. And I've also got joining us for the first time this week, we got Leo.
Hey, everybody. Let's see, do the intro. Yeah, so I'm one of the first customers for Level Up Entertainment. And yeah,
VIP.
I'm a fan of like, I think August of the first year. So
Yeah, that's when we started.
yeah, so yeah, and I'm a fan of the trilogy going back to the end of the 70s. So I like
Yeah, you were just telling me that Star Wars was your very first movie you ever saw in theaters.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Wasn't A New Hope then. It was just Star Wars.
Dude, I was calling it Star Wars when I was a kid, too. So, like, when did the New Hope thing change over? Sean, you probably know.
Like the 97.
Was it the re-releases?
No, I actually think it's the THX version that when they did the remaster on VHS might be the first time that they have the episode titles on it, but I would have to Google that. I'm gonna Google
Okay.
that.
I'd never had the THX version VHS.
That was the one that had like the character portraits where it was like split down the middle, and it was like Darth
Yeah,
Vader,
the half of the face, right? I know what you
Stormtrooper, and
mean.
Yoda.
Yeah, I think it was Stormtrooper, Yoda, and then Vader.
Okay.
Right.
I had the
right,
box
right.
trilogy one that with the fold out.
We're already off the rails. I love it.
It happens. So, point of this episode, we want to talk current Star Wars because we're still getting Star Wars. Like I said, the top Mandalorian season 2 just started, which we will get into spoiler discussion for that at the end of this podcast. We'll let you know when we're getting into it then. Although I should point out, people had absolutely no chill about not spoiling Baby Yoda the first time around.
Oh my God, I knew about it before the episode was out.
I knew about it before that. I knew the show was released. So we'll just kind of give a quick feeling. We'll get the temperature of the group of how we feel about the current batch of movies we got and like where we are right now. So I'll start with you, Leo, since it's your first time on. Just let us know how you feel about the current state of Star Wars.
It's never going to be exactly what I want it to be, but I'm pretty happy with the movies overall. Couple things, like I was telling you before we started the show, the Vice Admiral Holdo bit really just annoys me. And I thought, man, Admiral Akbar was right there. Just let him do that.
Yeah. We'll get into some of our just thoughts on the episode specifically. Not episode. Well, episode / movies or whatever you want to call it. Because we will talk about Rogue One and Solo at some point, I'm sure. Sean, how about you? How are you feeling about the Star Wars era we're in? Or the Disney era we're in, yeah.
I've been maybe not surprisingly talking about this quite a lot lately because I think we're in this really interesting phase with Star Wars where we have some of the best experiences for Star Wars coming out right now, like with the video games. Fallen Order was great. Star Wars Squadrons is phenomenal. There are some really good books coming out. There's some great comics that have been coming out over the last few years. The Mandalorian that we've mentioned, I think, is phenomenal. And then I think the movies have been a mess at best, right? Like I don't think they were a worthy successor to the original trilogy or even the prequel trilogy. But there's so many other things going on with Star Wars right now that's really great. It's like a really good time to be a Star Wars fan, despite the fact that like the tentpole, in my opinion, movies just aren't really cutting it. But that's my personal opinion. I could get into more about the movies, but I have a feeling we'll get there. So
Oh yeah, that's going to be like the next thing. Because
Yeah.
I echo a lot of what you're saying, Sean. I did not care for the movies, and it's kind of weird to feel like the movies are kind of the least important part of the franchise now. And I
Yeah.
think part of that
Yeah.
might also just be like how we consume media now. Like I love The Mandalorian, like surprisingly, because I was ready to just kind of like not care about it when it was first coming out.
I remember
Just because
racing to you and like trying to convince you. You're like, and I'm like, no, dude, trust me, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. No, I'm super glad I watched it now. But like, yeah, just I went 3 movies in a row where I did not like them. First time's an accident, or first time's an accident. Second time's a coincidence. Third time's a pattern. Which is like, all right, we went 0 for 3, and I'm like, I'm kind of done. Like these just aren't for me. So I didn't even see Solo or like Rise of Skywalker. But again, we'll get into our thoughts of these ones a little bit more specifically. But
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't see him at all, or you didn't see him in the theater?
I haven't seen them yet. I mean, I've not shied away from spoilers because I've just yeah.
Like I know we're gonna get into it, but I would say like I think that they're all worth having watched at least once
Okay.
for various reasons, and I would actually argue that Solo is probably one of the better of the Disney movies.
I like Solo a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
and I think it's
Ron
really
Howard has a good understanding of the universe and how to get from one end to the other.
right. I think it's fine. Like surprisingly, it was the one I was like most anti going into. I was like, I'm ready for this suck, and then I saw it and went, all right. Like
Maybe because we heard it was a hot mess, like making it.
maybe,
Yeah,
but
maybe it's
I
just
think
lowered
they just
expectations, but
no, I don't think so, and that's why like I say it seems like it's standing the test of time. It's like every time you go back to it, it's not that bad. You're like, oh, this is a fun movie, as opposed to like you go back to, let's say, The Force Awakens, and you're like, oh, right, none of this pays off.
yeah.
And it's less fun,
you guys.
right? anyway.
After this, we'll out back.
Oh yeah, no, we'll
I know.
yeah, we'll
Leo, I miss throwing down with you in the store.
It's all right.
I miss like our arguments where we'd be like, you know what?
But no, it's all out of love. You wouldn't be on the show because we have the End Friends squad.
No.
You know,
It's always
It's
always
not on the same level as political discourse in our country.
oh yeah, yeah.
It's always been like the
Star Wars
most
matters, so we need to come together.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. With that, like, I guess let's segment into our thoughts on the movie specifically. I mean, I guess let's just start at the beginning with The Force Awakens. What were you guys thinking about the build up for that? And Sean and I were working together at the time, so I know that the build up was quite intense for some of us.
So my wife and I
Yeah.
drove to Pennsylvania to see the original trailer in the movie theater the night it premiered. We went to see Horrible Bosses 2 to watch the trailer. To see 30 seconds, to see BB-8 go across the screen, go, what is that?
Horrible Bosses too. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Was Horrible Bosses 2 worth seeing it?
It's memorable. It was a good time. It's like, it's one of those movies you watch it once, you're like, yeah, I'm with you. Charlie Day's in it, and he's hysterical.
So it wasn't horrible. All right.
It could have been worse.
Okay. But boy, that sounds like people watching Wing Commander to see the Phantom Menace trailer.
I did that too.
Yeah. I know you did that too, right, Sean?
Yeah, I did, and that was back during the early days of QuickTime, where you could go to apple.com and download movie trailers. That was one of the earliest ones you could get, and I did that. But we're not going to talk about the prequels. We're going to talk about this one.
But Wing Commander was so bad.
It's a very bad movie. Anyway.
Well, speaking of bad movies, let's talk about The Force Awakens.
Okay, so you know mine, but for everybody else's sake, like I was on board, 100% on board for both Disney taking over the franchise, J.J. Abrams directing the first movie. I thought that they were just going to knock it out of the parks. They seemed like they knew exactly what they needed to do to make it successful. And then the first trailer hit, and it was just like, chills and pure emotion. Like it just you couldn't be cynical about it. I felt like you couldn't be cynical about it at the time. You know,
They showed us nothing though.
and it's hit so hard. I mean, like it was that shot of the X-wings flying low over the water that wound up not actually being in the movie was my desktop background for like up until last year. Like it was
Wow.
like a good like 5 or 6 years of that because it was just such a cool shot and there was so much going on in it that I felt like they understood what it meant to make a modern Star Wars movie. And then it came out and I honestly really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was not a perfect movie, but I thought it was an incredibly enjoyable movie. And I couldn't wait to see where they were going with these characters.
The best of the three, I would say.
Well, I can argue that, but
Yeah, I might argue that too. But
but
Yeah.
I was on board. I was hyped. I was not cynical. I was like ready. I was ready to fall in love with these characters. I listened to the soundtrack a billion times. You know, I bought it on Blu-ray the second it was available.
It's a good score.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, there was a lot I thought to like about that movie. So, like,
The music
I
in
thought
the
they
new
started incredibly
movies
strong.
doesn't get the credit.
I think without going off on too much of a tangent, I do think that like the soundtracks are okay, but that there's nothing that like winds up being as memorable as some of the stuff in The Force Awakens were, like even in the prequels. But you could do like hey dog, you could do like a whole podcast on just that alone. But yeah, like suffice to say, like I was on board. I was excited. I was defending it.
You and I and basically the rest of the store went and saw Force Awakens together.
Yeah.
And we saw it in IMAX, one of the early showings. I think I was the only person in the entire theater that came out was just like, eh. Like I was just lukewarm. Like everyone was like crying and freaking out. And I was like,
it felt great. It was an exciting new Star Wars that didn't feel insulting at the time. It didn't feel insulting.
I remember at the time being really frustrated because I couldn't articulate why I didn't connect with it the way a lot of people did. And it took me like a day or two of thinking about it. I was like, it was just too rehashy for me. And,
well, nostalgia hits hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
And I was a huge Star Wars kid. Like, I was so hyped for Phantom Menace. Like, I was too young to just go see Wing Commander, like, and make special trips like that. But I watched that trailer over and over again. Like, that's what I've always said. The worst thing that Phantom Menace ever did is like it took away that like hype for a new Star Wars movie like away from me.
It was the best trailer. That first trailer.
Yeah,
it is honestly a work of art. If you go back,
I still watch that trailer sometimes. I need a pick me up. Let me watch episode 1 trailer.
I'll be like, I want to see that movie. That movie looks great, and I'll be like, yeah. Anyway.
yeah, but it took me a couple of days, and I felt really like just talking to people. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't like it as much, but now that I've had some time, I realize why. Because like, it's the new movie that had the J.J. Abrams thing where I didn't really get to know enough about the new characters, and there was a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think he does a very good job of like letting you connect to characters, especially ones that don't have like a pre-existing thing. Like you could kind of get away with it with the Star Trek reboot, just because like you already kind of know who like Kirk and Spock and those guys are.
You're leaning on that.
But we always said that the new Star Trek movies were Star Wars, but under a different name.
Yeah, that's why I was giving him the benefit of the doubt for that, because I've not been a J.J. Abrams fan for a long time. Like pre-Star Wars, we know how I feel about some of his Star Trek decisions.
Yeah,
but I know I
didn't like Felicity.
I didn't like Felicity. Lost fell apart, and I think his movies always have the mystery box gimmick. It has a really interesting premise, but like no payoff. And I think the new movies show that in spades. But
like just to bounce off of that a little bit, like I always thought that Abrams was really good at starting stories. Like I did love Lost at the time, like until it ended, and I don't think I hate it, but I do feel like dissatisfied with the way that it played out. And I think the problem is, And again, he didn't really have much to do with like the later seasons. But the problem is he does set up these mystery boxes, like you referenced. The idea behind a mystery box is that like it's something that's intriguing. It's a box, you want to know what's inside of it. Like you can't know. You want to open it. It could be anything. What's in the box? You know?
Yeah.
And then the problem is that rarely is the answer to what's in the box satisfying unless it's at the end of a certain movie, which I don't want to spoil. But like if you set that up, you better make sure that your payoff is going to hold up to whatever anticipation that you're setting up. And he doesn't have any consideration for that when he's building these mysteries. They're exciting and they're like enthralling. He's really great at having these characters feel alive and then feel like there's a sense of urgency to all of the scenes until you take a moment to think about like, well, why are they doing that? And what are they doing this for? And then what's going to happen when they do it? And then all of a sudden, like it just falls apart.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like over. And
yeah, there's like no story.
Yeah.
And the pacing of Force Awakens, it all takes place in like a day.
Yeah. It's a short amount of time.
Yeah. So
like immediately Rey knows how to fly a ship, even though she's never left the planet. It happens in Millennium Falcon. They escape 2 TIE fighters by flying through a thing like they do in every movie. They go off, and all of a sudden Han Solo and Chewbacca are just there. And then all of a sudden more dudes that were chasing Han Solo were there. And then all of a sudden they're on the planet with Maz Kanata, like where they needed to go. And like, I know hyperspace is a thing, so faster than light travel like happened, but like you think about to A New Hope and like how much downtime there was between Tatooine and Alderaan.
Yeah.
We got to like learn about our characters a little bit and slow down.
Between Hoth and Bespin, we're still arguing how long was that?
You know?
I think that one of the most damning things, comparisons that you can make is what you just said, Scott, for the newer movies, is to watch The Force Awakens or Rise of Skywalker and then watch A New Hope and realize like there are extended scenes where there is not a lot happening. There's some dialogue. There are people talking. That's it. There's no action there. But in those moments, you start to realize who these people are and why they're on this quest and why it matters to them. And it gives you a chance to feel connected to this world, so that when the action ramps back up, you are worried for the characters and you're on board. Where in the newer movies, you're bouncing around so much. Those moments of downtime are like maybe 30 seconds and you're on to something else and you never get a chance to catch your breath and like feel connected to anything that's happening.
Yeah, that's a big problem I have with J.J. Abrams stuff in general. It's just it's you spend no time with characters. It's just here's the thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing. And it's just like, you know, on a visceral, immediate level, that can be exciting. But when but it's all surface. Like there's no like food for thought. Like your brain, for me, like what I enjoy about stories is a lot more of that character stuff. Like just talking about that scene where they're, you know, going from Tatooine to Alderaan, you know, some of the most memorable stuff in the movies from that. That's the holochess game, you know, let the Wookiee win. You got Han Solo talking about he doesn't believe in the Force, no, you know, mystical forces like guiding his, you know, setting his luck or anything. Got Luke sort of training, like you get a little feel like how some of that stuff works.
Yep.
But
like, Obi-Wan gives you the exposition dump of what the Force is there, right?
Exactly.
You get a lot, and it's important. And the same thing, there are similar scenes in the other movies too, you know, like where they're fixing the Falcon after Hoth, or I'm blanking on some other examples, but there are moments when you're spending time like letting the characters breathe and letting the audience just soak in what's happening, you know.
And the VSB where Luke's putting his hand back together, and it's just a very quiet scene, and
just playing with his fingers, you know, real quick, just to test it out. Like, but like I was just say, like a good example from Empire Strikes Back, I would say is like at least the beginning of Dagobah stuff before Yoda's revealed.
Yeah, Yoda.
You know, when they're just kind of camping.
I love those scenes. They're hilarious. If you watch them, like you try to divorce yourself from everything you know about Star Wars, like Yoda is being such a little bastard.
Yeah.
He's such a dick. I love it. I just love how like he's just like
Messing with the flashlight, just
Oh,
mine.
even R2D2 gets a lot of characterization in that scene where like Yoda's stealing his hot dog and like he's trying to like fight him off.
yeah.
You know, like I don't know. I that's part of what makes the magic of Yoda. You know, when he first appeared, he's like this little imp guy.
That is a problem I had in Force Awakens, that we pushed R2 aside to like make BB-8 the focus.
Why did they decide that we couldn't have both?
I don't know.
Because
Because if R2's there, you don't care about the other droid.
like yeah, but R2, yeah, I know that was so frustrating in these movies, like where they were throwing nostalgia at us, to convince us to like it, and they kept R2 away from us for so long. You're like, but it's R2. Just if you're gonna pander, just give us R2D2.
Yeah, I
It
think
was
they're
a
trying
lot
to
of
have
3PO though.
yeah, I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too with a lot of that.
I will say I think 3PO gets some of his best scenes. Like I don't think they're worth a lot of weight, but I do think in the newer movies there's some really great 3PO stuff that
The Babu
I'm glad
Frick
it exists.
best scene for that movie.
That cracks me up every time. I do like that one a lot.
Yeah. And I like Dio. I like Dio as like the little abused droid. I'm like, oh my god, I feel for
Well,
that thing.
We get
I like
another
the
cute
concept.
droid companion to sell. Now you can buy it here. Build your own droid at our Disney parks.
Can I tell you just real quick,
yeah.
a quick aside while we mentioned Dio? As a parent with a son who loves Star Wars, he has at least one Dio toy, and that is the worst design for a toy for kids ever. It is impossible to make it stand up because it's just a wheel. It's a single wheel. You
With
can't
a cone.
Yeah.
Why do they do that to us? Give him two wheels. He's like, make him stand up, and I'm like, I literally can't. It's like trying to balance a coin on its side.
But even though, to get back to Force Awakens a little bit, even though I wasn't super hot on it, I was like, you know what? It's the beginning of a trilogy. A bunch of stuff is set up. Well, the way movies are now, like this isn't like the original trilogy. We kind of tell like the first movie kind of have to tell the whole story because you don't know if you're getting sequels. They know they're getting sequels. Maybe they have a good play to go. So I was still like optimistic for whatever the next episode was. 8. So I don't know, how did you guys feel about the immediate post Force Awakens like landscape?
Poe Dameron really annoys me from the jump.
Yeah, me too. He's making. I felt it was very like that Marvel-esque humor. I'm like, that doesn't. Really
And now I'm like,
fit.
okay, the guy who doesn't want to do a big effects-driven movie is going to go be Moon Knight.
Oh, is that official now?
It probably is. Every time we talk about something, it happens.
I mean, he was already Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I think he is signed on to be Moon Knight. Last I heard, but I first of all, you better not be talking shit on Oscar Isaac, Leo, because Oscar Isaac is a legend. That man.
I'm just saying, as a physical presence on screen, I don't know. Scott can kick his ass like up and down.
Have you seen Ex Machina, Leo?
I saw Ex Machina. I was just like, no. I was like, I was not
God,
buying.
it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. You are not seriously. He's so intense in that movie.
Like I remember the first time I saw him, it was in what was that movie? The really bad one with the girls where they're having the fantasies.
Oh my God, the Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, and it looked so cool. And I was like, oh,
Sucker
this
Punch.
sucks so bad.
Sucker Punch.
Well,
Sucker
Zack
Punch.
Snyder.
Dude,
Is
I remember you coming into the store after you saw Sucker Punch and telling me how much it sucks.
Yeah, I hated that movie.
Anyway, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac sucking.
Oscar Isaac does not suck, first of all. Ex Machina is an amazing movie, and Poe Dameron had so much potential.
He had potential. Yeah.
They clearly had no idea what to do with him.
Honestly,
he had no role in the story after the opening
And
because
just blow him out of space.
because he was originally in the script, he was supposed to die.
yeah, I
And
think
it's another one of those.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Scott, go ahead.
I think he should have died in that crash. Just like I think Han Solo shouldn't have died Empire Strikes Back, or shouldn't have survived that. Because he
Right.
kind of had nothing to do in Jedi.
Right. You can tell when stories and characters are altered because they realize they want more of, like, the fans like it and they want to extend their story because they always feel like they're just hanging around. Like
I
if you
wanted
go, like
more
you,
Max von Sydow.
Is he
I
supposed to
want.
get his own like solo movie, like explaining how he got to that hut with those plans? Was that the original plan for him?
I don't know, but like I was like, oh my god, Max von Sydow's in Star Wars. That's awesome
I
because he's one of
eventually
those
got to
big
see Werner
fantasy
Herzog.
sci-fi names that you're like, thank you, and nope, he's dead in the first scene.
Yeah,
So like he's a great example of a character that feels designed to make us want to read the novelization of his backstory, right? Whereas like in the original Star Wars movies, there were all these things that were there to make the universe feel lived in, and all of that like filling in the gap didn't happen until much later, right? Like that was something that was over the intervening decades. We decided that we needed to know what happened to Boba Fett
yeah.
before he got to Jabba's palace, right? Like we needed to know everything like that. So in the original, you're like, what's that droid? Cool. I want to know its backstory, even though none exists. And yet in this one, it feels like they're fully aware of the fact that when they create a character, they're going to be able to spin it off into a novel and a comic book and an action figure. And like, it's like you can see the storyboarding and like the brainstorming sessions, like where they're on a whiteboard and they're just like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and Max
So I'm
von
with you.
Sydow, we're gonna give him something else. He's gonna get his own spinoff here on Disney Plus.
He gets
like,
nothing.
Yeah, he gets nothing, but like I felt like that was a little too obvious in retrospect. Like at the time, I thought it felt like they were building that like lived-in universe that the original Star Wars had. But now that the fact that like we have the 3 movies and like they clearly didn't have a story, you can see that a lot of this stuff was just throwing things at a wall.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's do this because.
And I was talking with Scott before you jumped on about the novelizations, what got us from Return of the Jedi to where we are now, the Chuck Wendig novels, and they're worse than the movies. Because this is a guy who never read a Star Wars novel. He wants to explain everything as it happens and every person we meet. So you got to go back 10 pages. What the hell were we doing?
Right. I've heard that. Like you'll see, like I feel like that's another great example. I feel like those books are written to like generate content on the internet because you'll constantly see those articles pop up that are like the new Star Wars novel reveals what Rey was doing when something she forgot to brush her teeth, and like you'd click through to find out like how it fixes plot hole. And then like you realize what the hell is the novel doing explaining all this stuff? Like it wasn't important anyway. Why did we need it?
It's like papering over like holes in the walls, like real slapdash.
Yeah,
it was just as slapdash as the movie, if not worse.
Well, you guys read the Marvel comic lead up to it? What's it called? Was it called Shattered Empire? It was It'll take place in the immediate aftermath of Jedi. And it was like Luke Skywalker's getting some sort of force tree with some other rebel characters. And I was like, oh, maybe they're like the parents of one of the new characters because we didn't know who they were at the time. Like none of that had anything to do with any of the movies or
nope.
I thought they were supposed to be Poe's parents.
But like it doesn't matter that they were.
No, and
never
got
talk about it
anyway.
again. It's like it happened and that's it.
Well, the third movie then, in Rise of Skywalker, Poe has that throwaway line about being a spice smuggler, not the son of 2 resistance fighters.
Yeah.
Like it's dumb.
No,
they really didn't take any time to like listen, I don't need my Space Wizard movies to be particularly deep. Like let me set the table here and say that like I fully acknowledge how silly Star Wars can be, and I actually embrace the silliness. But like if you're gonna write a story and you're not gonna take the time to be consistent within your own framework, you're not gonna make sure that you go back and you're referencing the things that you set up and paying that off and like building a character story. First of all, why are there 3 movies? You don't do 3 movies because you need a new trilogy. You do 3 movies because your story spans 3 movies, right? And when it was so clearly like, well, we do a trilogy because Star Wars does trilogies, because the first trilogy there was 3 movies, and then there was a prequel trilogy, so now this is a sequel trilogy. But they didn't have anything to fill out 3 whole movies, and it was so clear. So even going back to like the fun parts for me aren't as fun because it just feels like an exercise in making money.
Well, they had so much they could have gone off in this direction, that direction, this direction,
So
and,
much.
and we abandoned it
Creative
to the
gold
next
mine.
movie.
I'm not even salty about all that, but at the same time, you're right. Adapt any of those novels, and you have a more compelling story. Any of them. Like the courtship of Princess Leia, where that weird guy shows up and like wants to marry Princess Leia, and Han Solo gets jealous. Do you remember this, Leo?
Right.
That one?
Yeah. In the new cut, yeah.
Some prince guy. Anyway, like any of these
Yeah.
would have been more interesting.
So let's move on to what I think is fair to say is the most divisive Star Wars movie, Last Jedi. What did you guys think of that one?
I think it's the only worthwhile movie of the three. I think it's the only
I'm
one
really okay with the Last Jedi.
I have
It's really
yeah.
Vice Admiral Holdo. That's it. Like
I have similar feelings to Last Jedi that I do to Return of the Jedi, where it has like a lot of stuff I like and a lot of stuff I don't. In Return of the Jedi, the stuff I like outweighs the things I don't. In Last Jedi, the stuff I don't like outweighs the things I do. And that's kind of how I like to look at it. But it seems to be a lot of like, when I first watched Last Jedi, I kind of loved it as an experience watching it. I think the cinematography in it is by far the most visually interesting of any of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked up to a point the subversion of expectations. And I like the idea of like, hey, maybe the way we do things in Star Wars like isn't the greatest. But I think this might be a little bit of a special case for me because the circumstances of where I work. I have to hear everyone's unsolicited Star Wars theories for 2 years leading up to it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, Snoke was nothing. Oh, that's great. I'm so happy about that. I do think they went a little too far with that stuff. I kind of like what they did with Luke to an extent. I don't like where it ended. I would have liked to see him be more of an active force in the movie after, rather than just expending all his remaining Jedi MP and
Yeah, man.
fading out.
he
Yeah.
became one with the Force, man. Like that's why
I would have preferred that if
thing.
he came back for real and like his whole thing was like re-inspiring a new generation around him.
Right. It's all with the follow-up, right?
Yeah, it's the follow-up,
fact,
yeah.
there was no follow-up. They
Yeah,
pretended
exactly.
like it didn't happen. I mean, for me, I really genuinely loved The Last Jedi. I do think it's a flawed movie. I think it's especially flawed considering that, like, again, there's no follow-up to anything that's set up in it in the subsequent movie. But it was the first Star Wars movie to try something genuinely new since the prequels. And like it or not, like I do think the prequels were trying to do something that wasn't just more Star Wars. Like it was another story in Star Wars in that universe. And The Last Jedi, it was like, well, okay, we've seen all of these Star Wars stories. What happens if we like kind of like took turn the camera around a little bit and looked at the other side of it? Like, what are we doing? What are these characters actually doing? Like, if you stop to think about it for a minute, what does it mean to be a resistance fighter? Or like the casino scene, I thought was kind of a mess, but like introduced an idea that I wanted to see more of in Star Wars, of this idea that there's a whole galaxy that's constantly in this like tug of war between some kind of fascistic empire and like a rebellion of some kind.
And
right?
we never look at it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and like there's people making money off of it, both sides selling arms and stuff. Like I thought that was a really interesting concept. Like this was a movie in Star Wars that was trying to do something new in the same universe, and for that alone, I was really grateful for it. And I think it holds up. Like it definitely has problems. It goes on way too long. That movie's over, and then there's like a whole 40 minutes left, and you're like, it's still cool scenes, but I was done. Like,
yeah. Oh, when I said at the time, the movie should have ended when Kylo Ren held out his hand and it held on it. It should just cut to credits. Like we don't know if they're going to team up. Yeah, it would have been like, oh,
amazing.
because he was making some good points and like Ray was kind of agreeing with him. I was like, Oh, this
love
would be
that.
interesting. Yeah.
It was
And
fascinating.
then he's just like, I'm full bad guy. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I liked him fighting Luke. You know, I was like, it's just thematically. But I
that
was
was
like,
cool.
by that point, I was just so spent, like, because we
Yeah,
just had a climax to a movie.
that
And,
whole
and Ray is
sequence-
just gone in the third act. Like, where does she
Yeah.
go? Like, the Millennium Falcon is just like out there doing
It just
whatever.
shows back up. Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
sequence reminds me of the end of The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's second Batman film, where it's like a phenomenal film, and you get to the point where the Joker is taken out of the picture, and then they switch over to Harvey Dent and his turn to Two-Face, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought we were done. The Joker got beat. I thought this would be like the seed for the sequel, and then it keeps going, and it's like a half hour later, and you're like, oh my god, there's another ending. How do we get out of this movie? But you know, it's so good. You just wish it was cut differently, right? You know, like you said,
Exactly,
Scott,
yeah.
that would be amazing to cut.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. I don't want to
differently.
tell you my
Yeah, no,
opinion on Chris Nolan's Batman.
I mean, to stick to Last Jedi, I think Last Jedi's biggest problems stem from what was not what's set up in The Force Awakens, but the foundation of The Force Awakens. There are just too many characters. They all try to give them all something to do. So like Finn like has nothing, and the idea of a reformed stormtrooper like trying to work against his former like allies is really interesting. I think it would have been really neat if he was maybe more motivated by like freeing or redeeming other people, because like they set up that they're like basically enslaved and brainwashed.
Oh, absolutely. They lay it out that they are kidnapped.
I wish they had
children
played
of
off a
different-
more like that he was a coward. If that was more of a recurring theme in the
Yeah, or something like.
Yeah, well, I thought, you know, they did bring that up a bit, Leo, in you know, The Last Jedi, where he's like sort of running away to just save Rey.
they
His
did, but
only
then it's just
interest
like, all right, I'm done with this. Let's go do this other thing with the space
Right.
horses.
Right. They didn't, yeah. Right, exactly. They don't follow up with any of that. This isn't my phrasing. I forget where I read it, but somebody said that like the biggest sin of Rise of Skywalker is that you know, Ryan Johnson did like a yes and you know, like as an improv, you know, where
Yeah.
he set up a
Okay.
scenario and you're supposed to throw it off to the next person who's supposed to carry on what they set up, and that J.J. Abrams just ignored it, you know, and wrote a different movie because it was like there was so much set up to go off in different directions and questions to answer. Like, what about those Jedi texts that Rey has? Like, what does that really mean? You know, that she saved that in the face of that message of throwing away the past. Like,
Mhm.
there could have been something really powerful in this idea of, you know, I choose my own destiny and I want to reference the past, but that doesn't mean I'm bound to it, right?
Oh yeah, I love the idea of Rey being a nobody, and because she was a character that was so defined by family and her past, and like her realizing that that's not important, like, and kind of
Right.
embracing her new destiny would have been so great, and like a great
That's
message. And the power
that's
of
a cool
found
story.
family, and then
Yes.
she's just no, her family and her past is more important than you even could possibly have conceived,
So super important, you guys.
in a way that completely robs the victory from the original trilogy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In a way that's
I,
completely inorganic.
I have seen The Rise of Skywalker, I'll admit, probably 4 times now. But I think I'm done with that one because I've given it, like, the first time I watched it, I'm like, I'm enjoying this. I'm frustrated because the pacing is insane and like clearly nothing's sticking, but like there's a lot of fun things happening. But then every subsequent viewing, I was like, this is just insulting. Like, it is lazy, weird filmmaking where they're
That-
just like, how
that
do we
first
bounce to the next-
hour is just
Woof.
insane. It's like we
Woof.
go from here to here to here to here to here to here. Like nothing sticks until we get to Han Solo coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like the first big moment in the movie.
It's brutal. And like there's all these neat things to look at, but it doesn't matter. And the fact that like at the end of the trilogy that you can't really sufficiently I mean I'll throw it out there to you guys. Can either of you tell me what the point of the trilogy was thematically. Like, as an example, if the original trilogy is about the redemption of Darth Vader, what is the new trilogy about?
Trying to break into China's box office.
Don't put the black guy on your poster.
Yeah, just minimize his role.
Which is interesting because, Force Awakens was beat by Ip Man 4, starring Donnie Yen, and then they got Donnie Yen to be in Rogue One.
Yeah,
that's right, they did.
And I know like this will make us a China.
And I know he was really concerned that he was just being used as a marketing tool to get for Chinese audiences. Because he's like, I want to have a real developed character. I'm going to do my own stunts. He does like 2 things and gets killed.
Oh, hang on, guys. I got to mute myself. My kid's still awake. Be right back.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, thematically, I have nothing other than like, it's a cynical cash grab kind of thing. But like actually looking at the text of the films, I couldn't tell you. Maybe like like everything's cyclical and really like,
yeah, that's always getting the cycle of evil,
like a really cynical thing. Like nothing you ever do matters. It's always just going to be the same struggle over and over every generation. But I can't imagine that that's the kind of that Disney wants such a downbeat ending,
but less significant because we've already done this.
Yeah, it's just so unsatisfying and hollow. Yeah, I can't imagine that's what they're going for, but that's kind of what I could get from it.
Why not? Nihilist Disney. It's nihilism Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, don't be wrong. I like a good nihilistic story, and I like Star Wars, but I don't think they necessarily like. It's not peanut butter and chocolate necessarily.
No. But I did like, since Sean's not here, the emo Kylo Ren Twitter account that appeared after Force Awakens.
Kylo Ren
really brought some brevity into the situation.
I guess when Sean has to unmute, we'll go back. We'll talk about some of the new characters, I guess, a little bit because it's a mixed bag, I think. Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, thematically, yeah, you can say the original trilogy is about redemption. Yeah. Just if you're looking broad strokes over 3 movies, because if you break down the individual movies, there's more specific stuff.
Right. Then, the first 6 movies is about a father's redemption through his kids.
Yeah, it's about, and then, the prequel trilogy is like about like a fall from grace. In theory, it's more like about how like deals and stuff can be corrupted. It's like the Citizen Kane story.
Yeah.
But like was not told well enough to convey that, in my opinion.
I don't know. The prequels get a lot of flack, but I was like, it really resonated with me at the time.
The prequel stories, I like the idea of the prequels, I think is great. I just don't think they were told particularly compellingly.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's good ideas in it, and there's good ideas in the new movies too. I know we're kind of poo-pooing them a little bit. But like I said, there's stuff in Last Jedi specifically I thought was interesting, but
the theme, like, since we're still kind of in The Last Jedi, but the theme of that movie is just resiliency. It's just we're never going to give up. And
don't necessarily let your past hold you back.
Yeah, or define you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting how both Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker have very different memories of the same event that kind of led down to Kylo Ren, going down the dark side.
Yeah. And I think, really like Luke's characterization in The Last Jedi.
So do I.
All what we expect.
And I know that people were really upset about Luke being cut off from the Force and just kind of wanting to die. I think maybe if we saw a little bit more, and again, this is kind of end up writing the stories for him, but they could have tied a little bit more into maybe Snoke was one of his Jedi teachers, and they were building something up, but he subverted it out from underneath and just showed that Luke Skywalker, can't do everything. But that's one of the things he said. But I thought I could do it because I'm Luke Skywalker.
Right. I did call that though. I said, but watch, Snoke is nothing. Snoke is like a puppet.
I'm cool. I was super cool with that.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of Luke's legacy and his past. Kind of he couldn't live up to the people's perception of Luke Skywalker.
Right.
And there's also
similar to his dad's.
Yeah. And there's a meta commentary to that for the movies too, where it's they were never going to be able to live up to the legendary status that we, the fans, would have put on the franchise, and the new movies could never have lived up to. So at a certain point, like, why try? And then I like the idea then, like, hey, people are still out there fighting. Like, there's still value even if you don't, in your legend or, you know, your story, even if you don't feel that there is. Because I love the idea of like Luke coming back and then like doing some sort of heroic thing and like re-inspiring the rebellion again. Because, you know, like they're, you know, they reach out, nobody's coming to help them.
Because it is that awe-inspiring scene where he walks through and you're just like,
and everyone's like, oh my God, is that Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
And then like at the end, like the kids are like hearing the story of it and they're playing like the, you know, and they're essentially getting re-inspired to get back out into the world. I love the idea of that. And then obviously they didn't follow up on it. Although to be fair, I think that might have been a good message for the end of the trilogy, like end on a really hopeful note. But you could have done it with the second movie and then like kind of follow up on that with the third.
Yeah, the third movie. But
it was a really nihilistic thing we came up with for thematically for the new trilogy where like no matter what you do, everything's going to keep happening again. And it's going to be this like multi-generational like fight.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do. It feels like Sisyphean, you know?
Yeah,
and,
I don't
and
think
if that's Disney's intent, that's really dark.
Yeah.
Destiny will grind you into a paste.
Yeah. Why bother having your own identity? But you know, so I guess unless you guys have any other stones to turn with Last Jedi, we can move on to Rise of Skywalker and just talk about the trilogy and the characters ultimately as a whole.
I just want to say about The Last Jedi before we move on that I did really appreciate what they did with Luke, because I think that the idea of exploring a hero after they're done being heroic is really fascinating. We don't really do a lot of that, right? Like once in a while you get that with like Batman Beyond, right? And it winds up being really cool. We're like these.
Yeah, you're late. We talked about that before you were here.
well,
just means we're on the same wavelength.
Then. Just to go back to to expound upon that a little bit. Then, narratively, that might have been the most interesting we could have done with the character of Luke Skywalker, given the time period, the time change in real life that has passed since we last got to see Luke.
Exactly. If this had been made 20 years ago, okay, maybe we could talk about having him be a little more heroic. But he's older. It's okay.
Exactly.
I think I love the idea of like Luke not being able to live up to his own legacy. Like, and I thought I could do it because I was Luke effing Skywalker.
He didn't want to become what his father became.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he just chose not to play.
Yeah.
There's
took
so
his
many
ball
interesting things with that.
Yeah. And again, they don't follow up on it. He kind of goes back on that as a Force ghost. But so let's segue that into what we thought about Rise of Skywalker. I know we talked about it a bunch already. So
it has some moments.
Yeah,
it has some moments. I'll give you that.
Like, you had some real feels in that movie. We're just like, damn, Wedge Antilles, man.
I love those Leo swerves.
But like, yes.
God, Scott.
Now, I was say, since we're at the end of the trilogy, more or less, what do you guys ultimately think of the new characters we got? Like Kylo Ren's potentially the most interesting one of the bunch, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings on him.
I think
I like that he does a silent performance after the scene, seeing Han Solo the second time.
I noticed that too. That he does not get a line. He goes, "Ugh." Like,
and that's it.
Yeah.
It is oh my God. Anyway, I actually I thought he had a tremendous amount of potential. Again with the Last Jedi, like I thought the chemistry between him and Rey was legit. Like they seem to have that, like, younger people, like,
well, they won't, they kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, connected, like finding that little spark despite themselves. And I thought that played really well. I thought there was a lot of interesting things to go, to explore with a character who felt betrayed by his family, and conflicted with that power and saddled by destiny, but then chooses to like embrace it, but like in like the worst way possible.
But also, was completely manipulated the whole time.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like it's none of that. It's none of his agency. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's just that there was a bad guy making him do bad.
Yeah, he just
Right.
heard the wrong things. He's redeemable after all.
Yeah, and that was my biggest problem is that, okay, we're going to turn him good at the end. I was like, come on,
Yeah,
just let him commit.
I thought he had committed, and I think that he had as a character, if they were being honest. If they were letting that character play out, I think he had crossed that line, and that if he had turned, it would be like Vader's redemption, where it's at the last second. It's the last bit of your life energy given to the act of redeeming yourself. But that's not what happens.
No.
Yeah.
He's just stupid. He does stupid things. He shows up and he gets into a fight and he wins because you can fax lightsabers with the Force. That's okay. I'm willing to let things go with that. But then he gets literally, like, he shows up to the last fight and they don't know what to do with him, so they push him in a hole.
Yeah.
They just shove the character in a hole, and until the scene is over, then he climbs back out of the hole. That's
and
it.
saves Rey.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's all they could think to do with this guy. Like, that's not a redemption. That's not a big dramatic turn.
It's not even interesting.
It's not even interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you would have expected if, like, Kevin Smith was making Star Wars.
Oh, touch it on Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Well, there'd have been a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And I loved it. But Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren talking about pussy.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kylo Ren is so much more disappointing. Just by the sheer virtue he's played by Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Like,
who is trying real hard, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's bringing it as
But
best he can.
he
it was
is
tough after watching him in Girls and like seeing Full Frontal, and I'm like, this is the major bad guy in the universe now. All right.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. He's got some real acting chops, and like I think he does better than the material kind of allows for a lot of it.
Totally.
God, see him in a movie where he's allowed to just be an actor, like Marriage Story or something. I'm like, man, the potential for such a great layered character is there. Not that, again, we need Star Wars to be like super, super deep.
But again,
Right,
I think like the last movie hampers him. Like anything substantial is just cut off at the knees.
Yeah. It's like they were really afraid to commit to anything that might make the character unpalatable, right? Like what? Obviously, kids love the design and the lightsaber, and like they had a legitimate hit on their hands in terms of like this new character. But they were afraid of doing anything truly bad with him, and then somehow, not being able to sell the Kylo Ren saber at Disney World because he murders somebody that everybody loves or something.
Yes, you had Hayden Christensen kill like a whole school of kids.
Right. And I don't agree with that scene, but I do agree. I do like that Lucas is willing to, like, in retrospect, go back and like really do something gross with his character, like make his character do something irredeemable.
And they sell toys.
And they still sell the toys.
Yeah,
exactly.
Darth Vader's still the most popular character. Yeah.
Totally agree. I totally agree. It is BS. I feel like, and I don't know. This is me. I'm a nothing guy from South Jersey talking about my thought. It just seems to where I'm sitting, it like that was part of their fear. They didn't want to put the characters in any truly uncomfortable, questionable situations. Because
but maybe that's just Disney.
Exactly, that's Disney.
Right. Yeah.
And yet they produce legitimately incredible movies through Pixar and even their own animation studios, where that like really engage people on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Like, and say what you will about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think those are good movies. I think they're well constructed with characters that we can latch onto and care about. I just don't think they did that in Star Wars, and I don't know what was holding them back so much.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe it's because they spent so much money on it. They were afraid to not play it safe. Right. I'm not sure. I'm sure there was a lot of studio notes at every step of the way for any of these things. So
I
like,
get that impression too.
yeah.
And I would love, like, it'll never happen, but I've talked about this many times before. But the making of Star Wars series of books are legitimately incredible reads if you haven't done so. It's like the making of Star Wars Empire, Return of the Jedi by Jay Rinsler is the name of the author.
Okay.
And I mean, I have them behind me, but they're incredible because they really fully document the entire process of creating those movies, like from George Lucas's early notes to like after post production and like marketing the film to VHS home releases kind of thing. Like it's comprehensive and it's laid out and it's fascinating. I want that for these movies because I want to know what happened. I'm
The
dying
story
to
behind
know.
this. Yeah, the story behind these are going to be way more interesting.
Way more interesting than the movies themselves. Like
Yeah.
I want to know how they made a trilogy without a path, like without a 3-movie arc.
Because like the original movie, you're going to be like, okay, Lucas's fight with the studio the
Yeah.
whole way.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like just the post Marvel Cinematic Universe world, like how do you not have a cinematic universe planned, you know? Like
It's the first and the easiest thing to do. It's what every nerd does when they talk about Star Wars. It's like map out all the things that they want to do, or like how the characters would react, and like what they'd want them to see. Like that, I refuse to believe that they didn't have any of those conversations, and that's why I want to know what happened. Like, what there had to have been a plan, and
Right.
if there wasn't
Why?
a plan, why wasn't there a plan?
Why
There's
is
gotta be
this
a really
movie all
good-
jammed in and rushed like the way it is?
Right. Like that story to me is just, I want that story. And I don't know if we'll ever get it. Jay Rinsler, I don't quote me on this because my memory is fuzzy, but I believe he had some kind of falling out with Lucasfilm or maybe Disney. I know that he didn't do any of the more recent movie behind the scenes. Like I have the making of The Last Jedi, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book, but it's it's your standard making of a movie. It's a lot of production shots. It's
Right.
a couple interviews, but it's nothing substantial. It's no
It's a
true
puff
behind
piece.
the scenes.
It's yeah.
yeah,
it's
because I remember you telling me a lot, especially about the Return of the Jedi one, like all of the warts and all stuff that happens in it, like all
It's-
the fighting creative decisions behind the scenes and stuff.
Oh,
it's
my
it's an amazing story, especially with Richard Marquand, the director, and the fact that he was like completely unequipped, like to do that movie at that time comes through in a lot of the stories. But it's never like, none of those books are told in like a salacious way, like they're trying to blame anything or stir up drama like a reality show. It's just
and it's never his movie.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
but like
so-
these books are not, these books, they just tell you what happened, and I want that for this movie if we ever get it.
So
Yeah, I would be fascinated in that, and like getting like a Hearts of Darkness kind of thing, or the one movie that I can't remember what it's called, but like that making of that terrible Dr. Moreau movie. The story behind it is insane, and so much more compelling than that movie ever was going to be. Sometimes that stuff's really interesting, and like as you know, film fans and fans of this kinds of stuff in general, like even if it's not always 100% glowing, and I'm not saying like doing it in a salacious way, but like just stating it as matter of fact, like, hey,
Right.
these were the conversations we had. Like,
Yeah.
this is why we
Yeah,
ultimately
you're right,
got
yeah.
this creative decision, you know?
Yeah, I mean, think of the Red Letter Media videos that
Yeah.
included the clips of Lucas and Richard.
Rick Berman.
Yeah.
No.
The other guys. No.
There's another Rick. Rick Berman's the Star Trek guy.
Anyway, I can't.
I
I'm
know what you're
blanking
talking about,
on-
but yeah.
Where
But
they're
there's
like
the
talking
behind the
about
scenes stuff, yeah.
where
Yeah,
like
where they're like-
when they cut those in, you're like, whoa. So they were paying. They were saying something about what was happening. That they were
Like-
aware of this in some way. Like, and you want to know more. Like, what happened there too?
Yeah. They may have gone too far in a few places, stuff like
Right.
that.
That's that one exactly.
I know you and I've quoted it's going to be great. Oh, it's going to be great with Steven Spielberg thing over and over when they're talking about the
that's one of my favorite
pilots.
things with you, Scott.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
That's going to be great. It's going to be
It's
great.
gonna be great.
Yeah. But yeah, it's also insane that like Lucas had that footage and put it out there. Like that's not something Disney will ever do.
I will
Right.
say one thing about Lucas. Like I have gone through a real journey with my relationship, like my fake relationship with George Lucas as a fan. Like from like putting him up on a pedestal to thinking like being completely disillusioned with him, to like coming around and thinking like he just trying to make the movies he wanted to make, and I really appreciate that.
I think he was kind of a victim of circumstance.
Oh yeah, totally. With that one.
For from a certain point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I do think some ego fell into it. I think he had a great idea for the prequel trilogy. I think he was not the right guy to do it, and I think he was too close to it to realize that maybe he should hand that off to another director or writer.
And I can't fault him for any of that anymore. Like I used to say, like he should have known to step away, because he's famously known for saying that he doesn't really like to direct. Like he's complained about it before.
Right.
And he's a terrible actor director, and like that's something that's been known even before the prequels.
Yeah, and say whatever else you will about him. Like I do think he does possess a certain level of genius for
Oh yeah, like he
creating
this whole
films.
universe that we're talking about.
And I don't fault him for like wanting to keep it close and like be the one to direct it anymore, because I think of but this is something I've gotten into like the older I get, is that I become more and more interested in the authors and less about the franchises. So there's another a director that I love, Hideaki Anno, who created the Evangelion series. And
Okay.
he did the most recent Japanese Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla, and that's a guy who keeps coming back to something. You know, like he's compared to George Lucas as like the Japanese George Lucas, because he was huge over there, and he's come back to it numerous times. But what he's done with it as he returns to it is fascinating, because it's like him going back and deconstructing his own works and like going back through and redoing things maybe a little bit differently, but it's all unapologetically him. So like whether you like it or not, it's someone putting their work out there. And like I think that was Lucas, right? I think Lucas is someone who continues to, no matter what, just put out what he wants, regardless of what other people say.
And you can't say he hasn't been good to the fans. I'm like, he's given us stuff. He's helped the independent filmmakers make fan films. Mm-hmm. He's given them sound effects and the scrawl and everything else, and like create.
He let people make books and write stories about it and not go after them legally. Like fan fiction in the U.S. is technically not legal, but they don't go after them.
No,
they don't do
and
that.
It's the #1 fan fiction.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like he's probably suffered some like pretty heinous hate mail and like comments.
People were brutal. Like, you guys ever watch that British show Spaced?
Yeah,
Simon Pegg. So like, there's that whole episode that takes place after Phantom Menace came out.
Right.
Where he's like screaming at kids that like Jar Jar Binks. He's like doing all of his Star Wars stuff. That's like the least probably that he's ever seen for this, because I'm sure. Listen, I love geek culture. I love being a part of it, but like, we can be very we can be very scorched earth as a group. Maybe not us individually, but when.
No, I was the one guy that stuck up for the prequels.
I liked them at the time, and then as I rewatched them, when they started coming out in VHS and DVD, I was like, oh, these are kind of not that great. And then when I saw the third one, I was just like, whatever, it was fine, and moved on with my life. But like, to me, the luster of Star Wars had worn off for me after the end of those. Mm-hmm. And it kind of didn't really come back because the Disney movies kind of felt a little corporate-y. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't feel like there's like it's not like J.J. Abrams is like, hey, here's my trilogy. And I'm like, talking about being the author.
Right. You don't get that sense of authorship, like that there's somebody who cares a lot about a story and they want to get it out the door. It does feel like something someone has been hired to do.
And I wonder what it would have been like if he didn't hand off to Rian Johnson for the second film.
Yeah. And like, me too, honestly. Like, if it had been his all the way through, like maybe he did have something he wanted to say.
Right. Would it be a more cohesive story?
Maybe, but we don't know, and we won't know, and I think that's a shame. Scott, you mentioned something about the prequels, and I don't want to like take it off in that direction too much, but like I have come around on those like quite a bit. I do think they're like incredibly flawed movies, but I was a hater for an extremely long time. Like where I would like just I would rant about this.
Movies, I've also softened on them too.
And I recently rewatched episode 1, and it is not.
How many times is that now, Sean?
Dude, who knows? 9 in the theaters, Leo, during the theatrical run.
I mean, I have a
but
bold statement. I think episode one's my favorite of the prequels.
it might be mine too. I was going to say that because
Yeah.
like there's so much going on in that movie that feels really ambitious, even now, like going
Right.
back to it. And
I-
I actually
Yeah.
can't fault it for its flaws as much as I used to be able to.
And the score
Especially-
for that one alone.
Oh, I've always
Yes!
said Duel of the Fates is the best thing the prequels did.
It might be
Yeah.
one of the best Star Wars soundtracks. It is so good. I
Yeah.
recently, like after watching the movie, I went back and listened to the score, and it's like John Williams has pieces in that barely get played in the movie that are absolutely stunning. Like his Anakin theme almost gets no use, and it is really good. Anyway,
No Oscar nomination for that score.
it's a crime. It's a crime.
Yeah.
But but like I just I'm willing to forgive things more for their ambition in like in my later years
Yeah.
but than I was before, and I just think that the lack of ambition in some of these movies is
And it had a story that went
Mhm.
through the 3 films.
it
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
it was clumsily told, and real quick, shockingly present that was not the word timely now. Like if you go back and watch the stuff that's going on with the Senate in that movie, you're like, I thought this was like really
Oh,
broad and
yeah.
stupid at the time, and it turns out that's
Political
exactly
intrigue, man, is just.
This is how
Yeah.
democracy dies with
Yeah.
thunderous applause or whatever.
shockingly
Don't
accurate.
think
Anyway,
I haven't been thinking about that.
shockingly accurate. Anyway, back to the newer stuff.
Yeah.
Robot chicken, and then I threw the Senate at him.
Yeah, the Senate, No, I mean, and the very least, like, Palpatine is so great in those movies. He's so campy. He's
I
just
know.
evil, and he's so about it. And like, I was kind of hoping for maybe a little bit of that. I'm like, listen, it's dumb he's coming back, but maybe, again, maybe he'll throw another government body at somebody.
This time it's the House of Congress.
Yeah, it's the Capitol building,
Judicial.
No, they can't because they blew up the Capitol building in
Yeah.
freaking Force Awakens.
on a planet I don't even know the name of.
Hacian Prime, but I'm sorry. Anyway,
But I'm
Good
saying,
job,
like,
Sean.
But it's such a pointless thing in the movie when it happens. Like, they're like, oh my God, they blew up these planets. I'm like, I don't know who was on them.
so good seg right here, because Hacian Prime came up most recently in the most recent episode of The Mandalorian,
Yes.
which is why
Yes.
that name was at the top of my head. They mentioned the Hacian Prime system.
I just watched it. I didn't notice that. I think, all right, so let's segue a little bit to the best thing Disney's done, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I haven't watched the cartoons. I haven't played all the games. I haven't gone to the
You haven't
theme
read the
park and
books.
stuff.
You haven't read the comics.
Yeah. Oh no, I've read the comics. The Marvel comics are good, especially the Darth Vader one
Yes,
My pro-
Kieran Gillen
Yeah, it was-
made.
was great. My problem with the comics is the problem I just have with prequels and like midquels and stuff in general is like the major stuff of there's not going to be anything super major of consequence
Right.
just by virtue of like the characters have to get to point B.
So on that note, Scott, actually, I've read the first volume of the Marvel Star Wars series, the graphic novel,
Is
over
it
and over again.
the post Hope or Empire?
It's in the post A New Hope one.
Okay, because now they're post Empire Strikes Back now.
Right, but like when they first brought it back, and they're like, Marvel's doing it, and anyway, because
And I
I
had
picked
to
it
go
up.
and buy 70 covers of the
Yeah.
same
Yes.
comic.
Mhm.
Nobody made you do that, Leo, but thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Welcome.
But so my son has the first volume of that, and he loves it. Like we read it quite a bit, and I have to say that I remember at the time that it came out, I was just reading it for myself and had the exact same reaction, Scott. It was like, oh, they're just filling in the minutes. Like I don't need this. It feels weird. It makes it feel like these people's lives are just like a J.J. Abrams film, nonstop action. Like they're constantly bouncing around from fateful encounter to fateful encounter. But in reading it with him, like they nail the tone of Star Wars and the voice of the characters in such a like it's a pretty impressive way. Like I'll read it in their voices,
Yeah.
Like I'll do the Harrison Ford.
And I want
like-
to say that, and I'm not just about to say this because we have a comic book store and I want to sell you these, so you should buy them. But they are good. Like they're not bad.
No,
It's just
they're
No, they're not crap
inconsequential.
comics.
yeah.
enjoyable, but they're throwaway. But they're not insulting. I honestly think
Yeah.
they're like perfectly fine entertainment
Oh
if
yeah,
you're
they're
not
great.
looking
It's
for a deep investment.
it's just for me, comics like I need
I
to
don't
be
know. Did you see
compelled-
that Knights of the Old Republic book I put up last week? $1,000.
Whoa, the Dark Horse one.
Yeah,
Oh
because
my
it's the first Darth
God.
Revan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had that? Of course
I
you
got
had
two
that.
of them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Leo.
I got one from you guys, so thanks.
So I was about to say, well, so for listeners at home, though, Leo is one of the people that got every Star Wars comic that came out for years from us.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I wanted to bring you in for a Star Wars conversation, but
Uh,
I know I've known you for a long time, and I've known you're a big fan, so you'd have opinions on this stuff.
oh my
Um,
God.
But yeah, but I will say the Darth Vader book, it's a lot more like introspective. Like there's a lot more quiet character stuff. Like the
Yeah.
issue where he finds out, because he hires Boba Fett, because of course he does, to find out who
'Cause
was the
that's what
guy
you do.
who was the pilot that blew up the first Death Star. He finds out some kid named Skywalker, and then he finds out the Emperor had been lying to him. And he's just quietly there for a couple of pages, and then just the windows in whatever ship he's in just crack because
Yep.
of his anger, just the Force, like it pushes him.
It's a
Was
great
really powerful.
scene.
Yeah,
It is. It's one of those instances where they're using the medium of comics really effectively, which it's so hard to have those moments because you're just scanning a page. But no,
Yeah.
that one has weight to it. It's a great moment.
yeah.
And
no,
I love when he
yeah.
goes back to the beginning of like Darth Vader being Darth Vader. And they
Mhm.
show like they have the initial story where he's going down hunt Jedi that are still out there. And he finds the one guy who was like the sword master, trained all the Jedi, and he just kicked Darth Vader's ass and just like, no, you're not the guy in charge of this. There's somebody behind you. I'm gonna go kill him now. And
Mhm.
just the Moby Dick aspect of it, where Vader has this hate building that this guy made like turn me into a punk, and I am going to go and make his life hell.
Yeah.
And he does, like 6 issues later.
Yeah, like that. Like, no, yeah, the Darth Vader books in particular, like they're all good, but the Darth Vader book series in particular, I haven't read all of them because they've done a couple of different ones where like the original series ran alongside the Star Wars comic at the time, like they even crossed over a little bit, where they took place immediately after the original, New Hope movie. Then they did another Darth Vader series where it like took place between the prequels and the original trilogy, and now they're doing it. The current one again takes place with the current Star Wars book, but we're now post Empire Strikes Back. I do like that they didn't try to just tell the story of Empire again. They just kind of like started back over with a new number one. It's just now they're after it. Which is going to be interesting. I wonder how long that's going to go since like we don't have access to like Han Solo and like certain other characters.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am interested to see the fallout of Luke Skywalker coming to terms with this monster is actually my father. Like he had been kind of growing up like idealizing his father a little bit. It's like I was a Jedi like my father before me. I know he knows it's Darth Vader at that time, but
it's Marvel Comics, so we'll forget all of that and we'll just go back to number one and start over.
eventually I'm sure.
Now, Leo.
But I'm
How many
also
times are we gonna kill Uncle Ben?
Yeah. But I am curious, like if once they catch up to Jedi, they go post Jedi, like how long are they going to go? Like, because there could be a lot of material between the original trilogy and the sequels.
Well, the original series went 2 years after Jedi,
Yeah.
so
But and then they had like Dark Horse comics for millions of years. So
yeah.
for basically the rest of time until Marvel started doing them again. But yeah, no,
I feel bad for the Dark Horse guys because they made some great books.
I mean,
They
Marvel's
did.
still keeping in print. They're just, as the Legends collections. So like they're still available if you want to read them.
Interesting though, Son of Dathomir, the Darth Maul series, is the only Dark Horse series that's canon.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's
Oh, because
I guess
they
that makes
Good
sense.
again.
Because they pulled it
Yeah.
into one of the cartoons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because Maul is obviously,
He's
But they
terrible.
didn't rewrite it. They're like, no, this is good. We're gonna just
They just adapted it, which is
Yeah,
fine.
cool.
Yeah, and their Knights of the Old Republic series was really good. Anyway, we don't want to get too far off track. But the Marvel comics are worth reading, and then they have like a good kids comics that they publish via IDW,
yeah.
Star Wars Adventures, where they're more like kind of like one issue stories. I really love the art on them, like because you get a lot of like Derek Charmer and other people, and like his style, so it's a little bit more cartoony, but like everyone's still distinctly who they are supposed to be.
And
It's
they're
not
cute. I wish, like,
Yeah.
like Mike Allred did like a Star Wars comic other than droids.
I mean, Mike Allred's work, the way he works, like he would never be able to keep up with the demand for Star Wars
Yeah.
comics.
But just that campy style, I would love that.
And like I think that's part of why I like Phantom Menace, is I really like it's kind of campy and cheesy.
Yeah.
I tend to gravitates toward that stuff. But like Sean, you mentioned some of the video games that have come out. I haven't had a chance to play Squadron yet. How is it compared to like TIE Fighter and X-Wing?
It really is cut from the same cloth. Like, they did a great job honoring like the DNA of that series. It feels very much like an extension of it. Like, you get the briefings where they go over what the mission's going to be, and they talk about the ships they anticipate having and the formation that they're going to be in, and like what their objectives are. And obviously, as you go into the missions, like, things will change and they'll become like, there's bonus objectives. The original games were like that too, where you'd have to like scan a cargo container, and then like that was your mission. But then like rebel ships would show up, and you had to fight them, and if you were able to like successfully defeat them, that was like a bonus objective. So it's very much like that. The game is phenomenally gorgeous. I haven't tried it in VR yet, although I do have a headset, and it's just like a matter of like, it's like a whole thing, like a production, set everything up.
I didn't
So,
get to
like,
play that yet, so
it's very enjoyable, and it's just a fun game on top of it. The story is actually pretty cool. The characters are all really well voice acted and animated. Like, say what you will about EA, like their Frostbite engine and the tech that the games are built off are like phenomenal. Like, they look incredible. Like the lighting on their faces, like even on lower settings, is just really good. So I think also it's only a $40 game, which is really cool. They didn't launch it at full price, so I think it's
cool.
totally worth the price of admission.
Well, that was the whole thing. Like, I looked at it and I was like, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot in that game.
It's a surprisingly robust single player mode. There's a multiplayer mode that I have not gotten into at all, because I barely have time.
Yeah, that's like a takeaway for me, because like I think the last Battlefronts where it's all
online.
Yeah,
I expected it to be built like that too. I expected an EA style game where it was built around the multiplayer model, and where they monetize skins and DLC, and it was all about like buying loot boxes and doing like weekly ranked matches and stuff. But it's not at all. Like, you can play just a single player, and I would say that you get $40 worth of entertainment.
Okay.
But anyway,
good.
So,
that was
talking about Fallen Order.
Well,
Fallen Order. I think Fallen Order is great too. Fallen Order is frequently on sale too. So if you haven't played it yet, keep your eyes peeled, because like you can get that game for $20 or less, and it's a steal at that.
Yeah. And it's a good 50, 60 hours.
Yeah, it's a long game. There's a lot of content in it. I think I
platinumed the game. So.
Did you?
Yeah, first game I ever wanted to platinum.
Wow.
Yeah.
What difficulty level did you play it on?
No, I played it at the default normal setting.
Okay.
So it was pretty,
That's
like
a
not
challenge.
the movie style setting. Like, so early on, I was getting myself beat.
Wow.
I went to Dathomir, and I didn't know I wasn't supposed to go there first.
Me too.
Just got the double lightsaber.
Me too. I almost quit the game. I was like, this game sucks. I beat Dark Souls, damn it.
Yeah.
I'm good at video games. Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
I missed out on both of those so far.
You have to parry.
I didn't get the Battlefront games. I didn't really have consoles for them, and B, when the first one came out, it was really kind of bare bones, and I was like, eh. I went over
that game pissed me off.
I went over our friend Harry's house and just played his copy for a little bit, like on each map, and I was like, I think I got what I needed out of this.
That's it.
And you keep getting booted early on. The servers kept crashing.
Oh, it was such a miserable experience.
And then Battlefront 2 came out and it had all of those loot box issues, or you had to grind.
And
like
I would not
500
double
hours to get
down. I
Darth
was like,
Vader.
I'm not buying this game.
Yeah.
Yep, I skipped it too. That game
I
was
told
on
my
sale.
wife, don't get it for me.
That game was on sale for like half price within a month of its launch. I remember going into like a Walmart and seeing just stacks and stacks of it, Battlefront 2, because like people were just not going.
Got burned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so,
And I
but like
felt so
that's
let down after the original Battlefront series.
I love those games so much. Anyway.
but that's what
Still
made
play them.
Fallen Order such a joy. Was that it was a Star Wars game that seemed to genuinely want to be a good game.
Yeah.
And it was a sleeper hit. I don't think anyone had expectation for it.
Well, I think it like I would disagree that it was a sleeper hit just because it was the first narrative Star Wars game in I think over 10 years.
Oh no, there was
Uh,
hype in the people coming in and asking us about it in the lead up to it.
Yeah.
And I
But
know
it had-
Like
it
no
had build-up.
DLC. I was like, come
Yeah.
on.
That's a bummer, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But they're
But
doing
they're
a sequel.
talking part two. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing
Yeah.
a
I think
sequel.
was it John who picked it as his game of the year at the store when it came out? Someone did.
Oh yeah.
Go on our website and look it up. It's there.
Go do your own
well, it's my
research,
game of the
damn
year
it.
for last year because it's the only game I bought last year.
Yeah. So yeah,
That was current.
yeah, I guess that was last year. Oh my God, everything.
Yeah.
Time seems to go extremely fast and take a millennia at the same time.
Yeah.
This 2020 has been gnarly.
Yeah. This week was the longest year of my life.
Exactly. But yeah, so let's move on from some of the extended media. Unless there's like, you guys watched any of the cartoons or?
Yeah, like I've seen the pilot for Rebels and like the first few episodes a couple times as I've attempted to get each of my kids into it. And my son loves Star Wars, but he's terrified of everything. So we don't really get to watch Star Wars with him, but he loves toys and
Really?
books. He's seen most of the movies.
He's named after it.
I know. And he adores everything Star Wars. We have lightsaber fights constantly, but he's afraid of movies and TV shows. He's just a nervous kid. The world's a scary place.
Okay.
I don't blame him.
Yeah,
But,
I get it.
But like, so I've seen it a few times, and it's actually on my list of like things to watch all the way through. Excuse me, but everything that I've seen of it is great. It's a really delightful show. Dave Filoni is the writer and showrunner for that, and he's affiliated with the new Mandalorian show.
Mhm.
He also did Clone Wars, which I've seen. I think I've seen the first 2 seasons of that, and I have. That's another one that's like I have to make time for it because there's so many, and the new season came out recently to finish it. But the one thing that they both have in common is that they're respectful of the Star Wars universe without being shackled by it, which is kind of what I was trying to get to earlier, talking about the newer movies where they understand what makes Star Wars, but they're not afraid to tell new stories in that framework, as opposed to like constantly going back to the same characters or the same like dilemma, or like being afraid to like actually have a consequence for an action because you want to sell toys. And I think you see that in The Mandalorian, and why that show has the appeal that it does is because it feels like things matter. And those cartoons definitely feel like they're stakes, even though they're kids' cartoons.
Like I was invested through Rebels.
Yeah,
Just going to because I know you didn't get that far, but
you
the
can
end
spoil
of
it. I know
the end of the Obi-Wan Darth Maul arc, and I was just like, that's a heavy episode.
Yeah. I haven't watched them. Not entirely out of lack of interest, but like I don't watch a lot of TV. But now that they're on Disney Plus, I really don't have an excuse other than there's so much media to consume, and there's so many other things that I want to experience besides just Star Wars. Except for The Mandalorian, I make time for that now. Which, speaking of, so I know in the lead up to Mandalorian, I was kind of like, they're just kind of banking on like Boba Fett, and I don't know. I was not in love with the Disney era of Star Wars media, so I was like, kind of going off on that. But like, and then everyone freaked out because there was a Baby Yoda in it, and that's all I knew about for a long time. But when the series ended, I forget who it was. One of the customers in the store was like shocked that both Greg and I didn't do it because I also wasn't going to buy another streaming service.
I was offering you mine at that point. I was like, "Here's my login.
I'm just gonna watch it." Right?
Yeah. Someone burned it on DVD for us. So
that's nice of them.
So I watched it. I watched it all in one sitting as like basically so I watched it as like one like 3-hour movie, and it's was amazing. I called it The Man with No Name in Cub because it's very much, at least the first season, was
Yeah, it's
very
very
much
Lone Wolf and Cub.
pacing.
Yeah.
Was a pacing of a classic Clint Eastwood spaghetti western with like a good, the bad, and the ugly, where there's an overarching story, but there's still like little adventures in it.
Yeah.
And I like that it's lower general stakes, but not low stakes for the characters that are in it.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
I love
It's a smaller story.
It's
And
not it's not the fate of the galaxy,
yeah, a planet's not going to blow up if Mando doesn't,
but this kid's gonna die.
yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah.
the Empire's going to get some weird experiment with it, whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I also freaking love Werner Herzog.
Might be the best
Oh
casting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Shame
perfect.
he's not back in the next.
Yeah.
So he has a line in season 1 that I repeat often, like, come let us share a libation to celebrate the closing of our shared narrative.
Yeah. Oh my God. He's
There's
so
no
great.
way he didn't ad-lib that, right? Like,
Yeah.
did they write that, or did he show up on set and just started talking like Werner Herzog?
Yeah.
I don't know,
Like-
because
So like, just keep rolling.
John Favreau makes some interesting script decisions.
Well,
in his
Favreau's
movie.
kind of the opposite of a George Lucas, where is a very much an actor director. Like half of Iron Man is ad libbed, but like it's so natural and likable that you
Right.
kind of don't care. That the story in
It's
that
so
movie
weird.
is,
I
like,
keep forgetting
really
he's happy.
basic. Yeah, yeah, he's Happy Hogan. Like,
Yeah,
he's still
he's
in this
happy.
stuff. Yeah, now he's a Spider-Man character. But I just love the pacing and the tone, like, because it really is just like a Western more or less, even though like not all the planets are on a desert planet.
It reminds me of like Planet of the Apes, the series from when I was a kid. Like it lasted one season, but that's what it reminds me of. It's like, okay, it's destroyed building, desert, destroyed building.
But like, all right. So talk about season 1 a little bit. There is a bit of an overarching story, but not every episode immediately pushes that narrative forward. Because like, there's one episode where like Mando's is on the run because he's got this, he's got a Baby Yoda character that the Empire wants for nefarious reasons, and for some reason he's more or less adopted him at this point. But then he's like, I need to hide out on like, this like remote backwater. Turns out like a bunch of bandits stole an ATST, and like, how do you fight that as a normal person? And, like, legitimately made it scary, even though like we know it can just be beaten by logs hitting it.
Right.
But like that's one of my favorite episodes of it. But that introduces us to Cara Dune, who comes back for the finale and is like now gonna be one of a supporting character in the show, which is cool.
I hope she's there forever.
I love the bottle episode where it's just like a prison break gone sideways, but you can tell like they had like one hallway and they just kind of keep reusing it. But like, you don't care because you like the characters and it's interesting what's happening in it.
But it forces, like, it actually goes back to something that I used to rant about at the store, about how when you watch the original movies, so many of those shots are things like that. They're clearly on a small set. They're in a cockpit with people on the other side, like shaking it, because
Right.
they didn't have a lot of other resources. So they had to tell stories about these characters, because that's what they had.
Exactly.
They had people and they had sets. And most of the shots in the original and A New Hope are like characters. They're just like the camera's on them talking to each other. And,
We're sitting in the
because this-
cockpit for 10 minutes.
right.
Yeah.
Because this
And then we
is-
want
I
to
know a
collect
few
all these baseball
maneuvers. We're
cards.
going to go
about
up
him.
and to the
Yeah.
left.
because
Yeah.
this is a TV show, they have those slightly more limited resources, even though like the effects on it
Right.
are shockingly good.
But they're reusing stuff, and you see
But they-
that. Yeah.
but it's that economy of like having to like work within smaller resources that I think forces it to tell a more intimate story that is inherently more interesting than those big Fate of the Galaxy stories.
And it's amazing that Mando is as interesting a character as he is, because he barely talks. You
Yeah.
can't see his face at all.
Mhm.
So like, there's a term for it. I can't remember what it's called, but like, where like if you kind of project like your own emotions on something that is emotionless. And he kind of has a lot of that, but like it's just like little things that he does as he holds himself and works his way through situations. But like it's just really compelling. Like the effects in it are so good.
Yeah,
I would say are kind of better than some of the new movies.
well, it's because they're not trying to do something that is going to be inherently difficult to swallow as a viewer, right? Like
Exactly.
you're watching something so crazy outside of like your perspective. Like there's still grounded effects. Like in the most recent episode, no, the first episode of the second season, when they're fighting the spoilers, by the way.
All right, so we'll go spoilers from here on out. We're going to also talk about season 2.
Spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're fighting the Krayt Dragon, and like it's a big sandworm.
Yeah.
The effects are good, but there's that shot where they blow it up, and it's just so like visceral and like it's not.
And that costs money.
It costs money. It was an expensive shot for sure, but there's
Right.
still not a lot going on other than that explosion. But it's still like you're there, you're in that moment. It's exciting, like it's gross, it's cool, and it's believable, right?
Yeah.
You're not.
I love the Tusken Raiders, and I'm glad they are incorporated into the story. And
Like the aliens and the animatronics are really good in it. Like that John Leguizamo alien that at the boxing ring.
Yeah.
we didn't even know it was him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know it was him
neither.
until the credits. I was like, oh my god.
Same
but
thing. I
like,
was like,
but like he looks great. The child looks great. Because you can tell he's just all. He's basically a gremlin. He's just all.
And I love how they work the child. He's so
Yeah.
detailed and
Yeah.
yeah, everything expresses, even if it's not necessarily a person's face. Like you said, Scott, the body language on the Mandalorian is he does whoever is in the suit, because I know it's like sometimes it's stunt double, once in a while it's Pedro Pascal.
Yeah. My understanding is it's mostly a stunt actor.
That's what I've heard too. But like you mentioned his little movements. Like there are scenes when like he'll get knocked down and he'll like get up and just, like, and like he's just a guy under a helmet and he's so fierce and like armored and cool, but like he's still human inside. Like he's shaking his head, like he's like coughing a little bit because he got punched in the gut by a giant alien monster, right? Like
yeah, and I like that his armor, like it's very resistant to like laser blasts and stuff, but like he can still get beat. Like the climax of the first season is him versus a TIE fighter, and it's like the most exciting thing I've ever seen. When he's flying around with a jetpack and just had
and he's
one
freaking
bomb
shot
on
it with the rope, and he's being drug around.
It's so awesome. But compare it to any of the movies, it's like this, like it's so small in comparison. But like you care so much about the character, and it's such a ridiculous situation for him to be in. That
Your
like
cast isn't 60 people.
Yeah, but like you've gotten to know him so well. He's just a guy.
Yeah,
and
it's an achievement in making us care about these characters that are aliens, that are entirely
droids.
CG sometimes. That are
don't forget IG-11, man.
Yeah, so IG-11 was great. I was sad when he bit it at the end.
One of my favorite characters in Star Wars now.
He's Taika Waititi too.
I love that Jason Sudeikis got death threats for punching the baby in the bag.
Oh yeah. I love the stormtroopers in it. Like you can tell that they're kind of just like guys that are down on their luck that the Empire just kind of threw in these dirty old costumes.
They're like real people for the first time.
For the first time since like A New Hope, where they're like chit-chatting with each other, like Bjark, or whatever they say. Like, and
you're talking about the new model speeder.
Yeah. But like but like they're so like dirty. You can tell like the Empire's like in dire straits because they're out of power. But like they're still like doing things and like there's still a presence. But I don't know. It uses the universe in such a way. Like the show does fan service well. Like I remember I was a little off put in the first episode because it starts off and it's like people frozen in carbonite. We're mentioning Life Day. We're mentioning like it's a lot of it up front. But it kind of gets away from it a little bit, even though like there's a little Yoda as one of the main characters and it's a Mandalorian.
I think that it does a great job with that. Like, and I don't think it's backed off of it because I was actually.
Oh, it definitely hasn't backed off.
Laughing out loud.
A crate monster in the first episode.
Yeah, I was laughing out loud in the first episode at how many different things they threw at us. I was like, things I know. But thrill, right? Like because
they service the story. They're not just things
Right, they're there because
that was my big problem I had with Rogue One.
It makes perfect sense that Mando is on Tatooine. It makes because he's tracking down leads for other Mandalorians and the Jedi. Like he's trying to find both like where the Mandalorians have gone and where he can bring this child, and of course it would lead him there because Obi-Wan was there, because Boba Fett was there. So like when he sees the things that we all recognize, it's because there's a story that means that he should be there, not because it's there to show us the things we want. And so that's, for me, that's why it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you know, they showed like the footage of the second Death Star exploding, but like it makes sense that it would be major news. I'm trying to think, like, you know, obviously Boba Fett's armor's in it, which I love that Timothy Olyphant can only ever play a sheriff.
Yes.
But you know, I like that the armor doesn't fit him right. Like he's, you know, like as soon as you saw him show up in it, and I was like, oh, he's about to take off the helmet, and Mando's going to be like upset, and that's exactly what happened. I don't know. Like I said, it services in such a way that enhances the story rather than like just take you out of it to remember things. Like the scene I hate the most in Stranger Things is when they stop dead in the tracks to like basically make a commercial for New Coke, just because it's a thing from the 80s, like we heard of. I'm like, oh, this is so dumb. You're about to fight a giant monster that like murdered your
I
friends.
drank New
Like,
Coke, man.
yeah, like
That stuff is horrible.
but like in Rogue One, like they keep kind of stopping the story to be like, it's the guys from the cantina. Remember Blue Milk?
Right.
Here's
They don't
Darth
do-
Vader.
Yeah,
for
that
no
did not
reason,
stop the movie for a second, though. They just walked
I-
by. You're like, holy shit.
I hated that so much because they're not giving me anything new. They're just reminding me that I saw a better movie 100 years ago.
Oh man, stop
Like-
don't rag on Rogue One, man. That's like my movie.
hate Rogue
I
One.
love Rogue One.
I don't hate it. I think it is fun. It is. I don't find it a particularly enjoyable movie to sit through.
I
do
think it
is-
gets better.
Yeah, I have to disagree, but like I do think like there's so a lot to like about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Once this pandemic's over, Leo, we're throwing down.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll throw it, you know, because we got to make sure that we're all going to be safe and.
All right, we have to respect social distancing.
Right.
You can't get like you can't get a good grapple.
Well, you can't do it at the store because we have rules. But no,
Really?
I-
Like the mall is dying. We should be able to do it in Caesars or in Sears.
yeah, we don't have access to Sears. But no, again, I want to focus more on positive things, and I think The Mandalorian does it very well. Like Leo and I were talking before the episode started. We started recording, and like the ice spiders in the most recent episode are very like from like Ralph McQuarrie art, and then you were saying it's in some other expanded.
Yeah, it's in the Darksaber novel.
Yeah,
Maybe go back to Hoth.
but like again, like the little bit of world building, like the X-wing patrols, they're essentially cops that pulled them over.
Yeah.
You know, like I thought that was
And they're
really
just
neat.
dicks.
Yeah. Again, they were cops that pulled him over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Listen to the cops.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Third episode of The Mandalorian this season. We'll see a cab on the outside of the ship.
Yeah. But like I don't know. Like it makes sense that there's some things that like hyperspace would like destroy, like, you know, eggs being like the way they are. I'm like, oh yeah, even though they don't explain it at all.
No,
Like,
we never think about it.
but yeah, like
you
that
don't need
makes
to go
sense.
into
Yeah.
details.
Yeah.
You don't. That's the thing, right? Like, and that's what frustrates me so much about the newer movies. And so we don't need exposition and details for these things. We need the hint of them, but there needs to be some thought behind it as well. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell that they built out a story and they established enough of a conceit to get the characters where they needed to be. They didn't just throw them into the situation, right?
Mhm.
Like there was like, why is it like this? How do they get there? What are the reasons for them to be there? As opposed to say like, you know, something like in I almost called it The Last Skywalker. It is now, I guess, but
Yeah.
in Rise of Skywalker, like, why does Rey go back to Tatooine?
Yeah. None of those, like Leia and Luke didn't want to go back there. They have
I
horrible
hated
experiences
it there.
Yeah. Leia was a slave. You know?
So, like,
You didn't see it off screen, like Luke willed her the house. It's like, there you go.
But again, it's just there for things, you know. But like talking about things showing up for a reason. So like it's established in the beginning of The Mandalorian that he hates droids, and it's eventually discovered like his family was killed by battle droids from the prequels and stuff, and like a legitimately kind of scary scene because
It
we're used
is
to
a
those
scary
things
scene.
being like jokes,
Yeah.
because to
Right.
Jedi they're nothing, and they're used for slapstick and stuff. But like they use the prequels in a really interesting way for the Mandalorian that like I actually appreciate. I like
Yeah.
that Amy Sedaris has pit droids. I
I
like
love
that.
Amy
I like that
Sedaris.
the Marshall's speeder is a repurposed pod from a pod racer. I was like,
Yeah.
that's really cool when I noticed that because I didn't
Yeah,
notice it
again.
right away. You know?
It's stuff that's in this show that is technically fan service that they don't stop anything to show you. It's just
Yeah.
part of the universe.
It's just there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there because it would be.
Yeah, nobody talks about them, but like they're there, but like you get it as a fan. But like, you know, not knowing that the Ice Spiders were in the Darksaber saga, I was like, they're cool.
But one of the things somebody pointed out online was the detail on the Boba Fett jetpack, that there's the damaged spot where Han Solo hit it in Return of the Jedi.
I didn't
was
even notice
prepared.
that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I noticed that the rocket was different. He had a rocket in there, but it was not the same rocket that Boba Fett would have had
Right.
because he would have fired it and they had to
Yeah.
replace it with something, whatever he could get.
Yeah,
Neat stuff, man.
But
I didn't
right,
notice
yeah.
the backpack. I'll have to check.
I didn't notice that either. I mean, obviously it was way more damaged than last time we saw it, but it was eaten by a Sarlacc, and who knows how that ended up. Obviously, we know at the end of that episode that Boba Fett proper are out and about because I don't remember the actor's name, but it's the Jango Fett guy, since now Boba Fett's a clone of him.
Tamora Morrison.
Yes, I'm terrible with names. But that was something that's disappointing is like you knew before this that like they announced the casting of like him and a lot of other characters. It's like, oh, that would have been a really big surprise if I didn't know he was going to actually show up. Because be honest with you, I might have been like, all right, maybe the thing spit out the armor and just digested him. I could
Well,
I could feasibly see that. I know there's been so much extended media where Boba Fett survives the Sarlacc pit.
yeah, but also like he played Boba Fett, who is a clone. He also played Jango Fett and the Clone Troopers. So like, I do think it's got to be Boba Fett. It makes the most sense for it to be Boba Fett. But like,
Oh yeah, I
Just
didn't
where
even think
they
about
are.
it being a clone, but
just casting him doesn't necessarily give it away, right?
I think
Right.
they said he was cast as Boba Fett.
I don't remember them saying it definitively. I just
And
heard,
they're already talking about a Boba Fett spinoff.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's Boba Fett. Of course
Yeah.
it's Boba Fett. I'm cool
Because
with
Disney
that.
can't keep a damn secret.
Yeah, I'm just saying like I don't think that's necessarily Disney's fault, but that's just with how the internet is. Like
Yeah,
it's just
how it
that
is.
happens.
But they
a
want
lot.
you to know because it generates conversation and you got to go see it.
Because I
and
know I've
spend money
mentioned
on
it. I've
toys.
mentioned it with the Marvel movies in two specific instances. If I didn't know Spider-Man was in Civil War, and I didn't know Hulk was in Thor Ragnarok, those would have been two amazing surprises, and that would have been
Yeah.
like those would have been like I Am Your Father, like genre-defining, or at least major shared cultural touchstones for people that are into this that we would still be discussing now.
I will say that like it would be cool if like those things could have happened as a surprise, but the fact that they happened and that they were so well done and enjoyable, I
Oh,
think
no, it's
that's
still
the
cool,
achievement,
yeah.
right?
But
Like,
it's like, oh, Mark Ruffalo went here onto the set of Thor Ragnarok.
sure, but I still remember like sitting in the theater seeing Thor and being like, oh my god, it's Thor and the Hulk, and it's so good, right?
I didn't
Like,
see
even
that
the-
till Netflix stuff. So
or even like the first Avengers, right? Like you're just the fact that you're in the theater going like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Oh, but the
Look at 'em
Avengers,
all.
yeah.
on the screen at the same time.
Oh, the Avengers! I was so worried about them not being able to handle all those characters, and now in Endgame they had like what 5 million.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like we knew all of them would be there, but like it
Yeah.
was still something to see.
but when funny segue, because when Avengers came out, like right after I saw it, after Free Comic Book Day at the store,
Mhm.
I went to Cleveland and I was working at a place where they shot most of the sequences outside.
Nice.
Mhm.
So I was like walking
That's
when we went to
awesome.
see Avengers on a day off, walked out into the square and I was like, this is where they shot the theme sheet, the scene in Germany with Captain America and Loki.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it was wild. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think people are going to, for years, people are going to compare this new era of Star Wars to this era of Marvel, especially since they're both under the same umbrella now.
Yeah. How
That
can
like
you not?
how you can make, because say what you will about the Marvel movies, and I have a lot. I don't think any of them are really that bad. I think they're mostly okay, which makes them very forgettable to me. At a
Incredible
certain
Hulk.
point, they all start blending together. I mean, I would say Captain Marvel's the worst one.
I didn't watch that yet. Is it worth it?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
But like it's a lot of them are to me are very samey.
Yeah, I hear you.
But like again, I'm not saying they're bad, and the fact that the ones that are really good are really good, and also it's just an achievement in storytelling, just from just from like a tactical sense of like planning and getting all the pieces in place to get them where they are. That like a logistics. That's the word I was trying to remember. Like the fact that we got to Endgame and it didn't collapse. Like what was that like? The better part of 20 movies at that point.
Yeah.
Like, and it didn't collapse in under itself, and it wasn't like
28.
I don't remember.
It's a lot.
It's definitely at least in the teens. But then we couldn't go 3 Star Wars movies telling like one complete story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
Oh, don't worry. Just think about remember this is the good times because Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all coming out.
we'll see. I think those have a very real chance of flopping. I don't think people remember Avatar as fondly as
I don't
some
think
other
people
things.
love that movie the same way.
Yeah, I think the 3D spectacle of it drove a lot of butts to the seats.
Yeah.
But I don't think that. I don't know. Anyway,
I thought it was a C plus movie, so I don't see the sequel factor.
I think it was an interesting experience, but I've never ever had any desire to rewatch it.
No, I saw it in theater. That was it.
Yeah. But anyway, I think Star Wars, for lack of a better term, might be going a little bit dormant now. I know Disney's been reeling back from the movies. And I don't want to say dormant's the wrong word, but like it's definitely like scaled back a little bit.
Well, next film is 2022.
Yeah, we'll see about. I don't know. How,
COVID, so
they're still making movies, but
yeah, I think they had to suffer from a problem of trying to crank out a movie every year. The movies always felt a little underbaked.
Ryan Johnson has a trilogy.
I don't know if that's is that still a thing? I thought that was
apparently
off.
Yeah, so
not officially. They haven't canceled it. So.
All right.
Yeah,
but like they've been burning through directors and stuff. Like J.J. Abrams wasn't supposed to make the 3rd movie originally.
No.
But
I'm like, maybe getting away from movies that are part of the core saga is the way to go because then you're not constricted.
Please.
Yeah, I think if we can get a couple other shows like The Mandalorian focusing on very different kinds of characters and maybe even different eras. Like I would love a Knights of the Old Republic show.
No, they're doing the movie, right? Yeah, they're doing the Old Republic movies.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want that as I don't know. Mandalorian shows like I kind of like that delivery content.
I hear you, but like part of the reason Mandalorian got greenlit was we need something to hook them for the subscription service.
Yeah, fortunately, we're kind of
and Muppets wasn't going to do it.
Unfortunately, that Muppet show's pretty bad.
I like it though.
I couldn't.
All right.
Anyway, I got to save Muppets for when we have Greg on.
All right.
That's only fair. But yeah, this episode's getting a little long in the tooth, so we should probably start wrapping it up.
Yeah, Wes never joining us at this point, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I guess not. But yeah, so final thoughts on the state of Star Wars. Leo, why don't you start us off?
Oh my God! Well, being the longest tenured Star Wars fan here, I got to say that I'm hopeful because I love Star Wars. There's always going to be it might not be exactly what I want or the greatest thing, but there's always going to be that one thing they're gonna throw me the one little biscuit, and that's all I need. I'm like, okay, I'm there for the next thing. It's like the last Star Wars movie, not the greatest one, but The Mandalorian's keeping me hanging on, and I'll get excited. And then 2-3 years we have a new movie, and I'm invested again. I'm always going to go with it.
Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better, Leo. I feel the same way.
That's good because I felt like I was an inarticulate crap pile there.
No, I think that was good. I honestly think I'm hopeful because there are, like I said at the beginning of this, The Mandalorian. I adore this show. And I don't want to be necessarily a fan of anything right now because I find that kind of exhausting. at this
Yeah.
point in my life.
Yeah.
But man, I love this show so much. Like, I'm excited to watch it. I'm watching it. I'm invested. I go back, like, we recently rewatched the last 2 episodes of the season 1 before the premiere, and I'm like, this show, damn, this show's good. So I'm really hopeful that we'll get more of that. I want to see more movies that explore the other parts of the universe. I want to see them give this to directors that are going to do something interesting with it. I want them to let this be a sandbox that people play in, much like they did with the novels. I think it's hard for me to say that I'm a Star Wars fan, despite the fact that like 90% of my wardrobe has a Star Wars logo or image on it. It's actually this.
Yeah, I
is
know what that feels like.
I still, collect things. I'm surrounded by Star Wars things. My son is named Luke. Obviously, I joke. I love the series. I love the world and the universe and the memories I have from it. Nothing will ever replace how I feel about the original.
No.
And that'll always be there for me. So, if we get more things in the future that are good and enjoyable and worth sharing with my kids, then that's awesome. If not, we have a lot of really amazing things. So, I'm happy with. It's unfortunate the movies didn't live up to it, but I like some of it, and I'm excited to see what else they can do with it.
It's not like we hated the movies.
No, I didn't hate
Right.
the movies. I was angry with the third movie because
It's wasted potential of it.
it's so much wasted potential, and it wasted everyone's time and money, and it just made you wonder why they did it. But anyway,
Well, you guys got
there's
me
good
thinking.
stuff. There's
Yeah.
good stuff out there right
You
now.
guys got me thinking then about doing the movies. Maybe just don't do numbered episodes.
Yeah, because I feel like the standalone films were better.
Yeah,
Like we didn't even talk about Solo.
We
I
did a
haven't
little
even
at the
seen
beginning.
Solo. My joke with Solo was like, this might be the only one I don't see in theaters.
And then you didn't.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't watched Rise of Skywalker, but I did not stay away from spoilers. I just kind of like ruined the movie. I was like, all right, I made the right call. I didn't really need to get super hyped up about this. But like, maybe that might be the way to go. Like you say, directors or storytellers that have something to say or do with this franchise, I think is the way to do it. And obviously they'll make money then if they're good movies and they say Star Wars, people will go see them.
Yeah,
You don't have
take
to
my
worry about
money.
the investment, And I'd like to see the park expand. I'd like there to be more than 2 attractions.
I'd like to be able to go to the park again.
Yeah, I was planning on going to Disney again this year because I went for the first time ever last year, and I got to see a very small part of the Magic Kingdom, but that was really cool. I was like, oh, next time I'm come down, I'm going to do Universal Studio, the Hollywood Studios park, because that's where Star Wars and like the Muppets and like other things are. And just COVID hit, and even though it's open back up, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody I know in Florida got COVID, just about.
Well, the people I know in Florida did not.
Yeah. So long story short, right?
Yeah.
It would be cool to see them expand that too. I know there's a hotel, right? Like they're probably opening at some point, but like when we can
Or you're on a Star Cruiser or something.
Yeah, it's supposed to be all immersive. Like if you don't, you can do the whole vacation thing without leaving the Star Wars area.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's stuff to be excited for, and maybe.
Oh my God, we forgot the freaking Imperial troop carrier in Mandalorian. Like the one toy, I was like, we never saw this.
Yes. Leo, they have so many toys that they have worked into that show. I sit next to Jen on the couch and I'm like, that was a toy. The E-Web cannon. E-Web cannon was a toy.
But again, it's fan service done right because I didn't even notice.
It didn't matter.
But yes, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like other than the fact that
repeater. That's a toy you could buy.
But other than the fact that like the main characters are Mandalorian and a Yoda force monster, like they're references, but like they're not like unless they find out that is explicitly Yoda, like reincarnated or something. But like,
oh, that'd be weird.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I think it's just a baby one of them.
That might just really ruin the series if you do that.
Yeah. But you never know, because maybe this goes on for 10 seasons and they run out of ideas.
I mean, they were stuck in the desert and all they could do was film.
Yeah.
during lockdown.
Also, in the most recent episode of Mandalorian, you know the scene when he's fixing the outside of a ship.
Mhm.
That thing he's holding was also just a random accessory from a Kenner toy back in the day, like
Oh,
one
that's
of those.
awesome.
Well, we need a gun. We need it
Okay.
to look a little different, and they
I
designed.
gotta
Yeah,
look
so,
at
like,
it. All right. I
Yeah.
missed that one.
I do want to go back, and I think when season 2's done, I'm gonna go back and rewatch the whole series again, because it's been a minute since I revisited even season 1. I kind of wanted to in the lead up to the second season, but like there's only so many hours in the day,
Yeah.
and you know our work schedules are getting longer now that we're getting into the holidays. So and now I do a podcast now, so I need to record and edit this and plan things. Even though it probably to the listener doesn't sound like we planned this at all.
Yeah, I know.
That's the illusion of podcasting. That's the magic.
But you know,
No, this is exciting because I'm like, oh, I've thought about doing a podcast. I'm like, no, that just seems like a lot of work. I'm like, wow, this is not at all what I thought.
Oh, yeah,
It's not to
especially-
do the work for you.
yeah, especially mine. Like I wanted the whole reason I've said it on the podcast multiple times. The whole reason we're doing it is in lockdown. I was like, this was kind of a fun way to like see people and talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of get my social interaction going. And I'm just doing it until it's not fun, or starts making a lot of money somehow.
I hear you.
In which case, then yeah, I'll force it.
Not a boy, Scott.
There's no shortage of things that I want to talk about, and there's no shortage of people we want to talk to.
Cool.
So I've been really enjoying it, and you know, I'm calling this one the State of Star Wars 2020. Maybe you know we'll come back and kind of reassess how Star Wars is every once in a while. And obviously, if like something major comes out, maybe after Mandalorian 2 is done, we'll come back and just discuss that in a lot more in depth. Like we'll just do like a whole hour and a half on that.
Yeah, there's never a shortage of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the first Star Wars episode we've done. I've already got 3 Star Trek ones. So we'll definitely have to start doing some more Star Wars ones.
We can do some deep dives.
Oh yeah, we can. Oh, there's tons of stuff we can do. We can go into the extended universe, the novels,
Yeah.
and all kinds of things. I know I have another Star Wars one planned. I just it's a matter of putting it into the schedule. So the rest of the year is booked up because I have I baked in a couple of weeks off just for the holidays, for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we'll see. But yeah, I guess that'll do us for this episode. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Sean, for coming out and spending your evening with us.
Thank you for having me.
No, of course. I was looking for an excuse to have you on, and I was like, oh yeah, Star Wars. I should just talk to Leo. That'll make it easy. And then obviously, Sean, I had to bring you on as well.
I love how you're like, do you want to talk about Star Wars? And I was like, I have opinions.
Yeah. I think I was like, hey, I think you might have opinions on Star Wars. Do you want to talk about them?
Yes.
Yes, because I very clearly know we worked together for many years, and Star Wars movies were happening for some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to talk about Dr. Afra.
Yeah, Doctor. Yeah, again, the general Marvel comics recommendations, a thumbs up. I would say pick them up.
Oh yeah.
We keep at least the first few volumes for each in store. So if you're something you're interested in, you can easily come in and pick that up. You can visit us at levelupentertainment.com, and our web store is shoplevelup.com. So I'll do this for this episode. Thanks again to my guests. Join us next time. We're going to be talking GameCube games. So until next week, stay safe out there.